Welcome to Pioneers and Neighbors 2008 edition. This is Olga Ruskin. About 25 years ago, we made a video about Phyllis Munday and her husband, Don, and their pioneering expeditions and mountain climbing here on the West Coast. We thought it was worth a rerun, and this is what you're going to see. So why not, though, after you've seen it, go out and climb a mountain yourself? Hope you'll be inspired.
Our Pioneers, Our Neighbors. I'm Olga Ruskin, and I'm talking with Phyllis Munday about early mountaineering on the North Shore and in British Columbia. Phyllis and her late husband, Don Munday, were vitally involved in furthering the knowledge of our Coast Range through mountaineering. It was their exploration work which opened up the area around which we now call Mount Waddington, which the Mundays referred to as the Mystery Mountain, the highest mountain in BC. But in the 1920s, this mountain was still the Unknown Mountain, the title also of Don's book, which I should add, Phyllis contributed many photographs. It was first published in 1947 and written here on the North Shore, where the Mundays have lived since 1927. I would just like to give you an idea about the contribution the Mundays have made to BC by reading a few lines from the foreword of this book, written by another pioneer mountaineer, A.P. Coleman. By their courage and determination, the Mundays have disclosed to the climbing world one of the most splendid regions of high mountains and vast glaciers in America, and all Canadians must feel pride in such a plucky and skillful bit of exploration carried out under great difficulties. Phil, why do people climb?
Just because they love it, I expect. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
We really loved climbing, so we climbed.
Well, what exactly about climbing did you love?
That is always very difficult to say what. It's the mountain itself, it's the challenge, and it's finding new areas to climb, and also going back to old peaks and climbs and areas that you've loved. Go back and see them again, like old friends.
So it can be very dangerous.
Well, I suppose if you're not careful and don't understand the difficulties of some of the more difficult areas, then it would be.
Well, you were a pioneering couple in mountaineering, and the book, The Unknown Country, certainly reveals some of the hazards of climbing mountains in the early days. It was interesting, you were telling me, though, that at the beginning, when the book was published, you had difficulty selling it.
Yes. Quite a lot. Nobody was interested in it at all to begin with. However, now there are no more copies left now. It's all gone.
That's right. It was reprinted in 1975. Seems to be a real upsurge in interest in mountaineering.
There are more people climbing, of course, now, and the area is beginning to be really known. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably the reason.
Right. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born out in Ceylon.
Well, and how did you get to Vancouver?
I was only very little then. I was somewhere around 7 or 8, I think, when we first came. And we've been here ever since.
Whereabouts did you live in Vancouver? Do you remember when you first came?
We lived way up in, I don't know what they call the area now, 29th Avenue, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And that seems a long time ago.
Well, how did you get involved in climbing?
Well, I was always keen on the out of doors and scrambling around on rocks on the beach. And then finally I met Don, and he was a climber. I belonged to the BC Mountaineering Club at that time, and of course went out on their trips.
Mm-hmm. I think you were telling me earlier that you'd been a girl guide, and when you were a girl guide,
Yes,
you got involved in mountaineering, on hikes here in the North Shore.
Yes, we used to go on a lot of hikes. Well, I've been a guide ever since they started, and I'm still a guide.
That's right. How would you get over to the North Shore in the early days? You were with a group of girl guides.
In the old days, they had those great big old ferries running to and fro across from Columbia Street, somewhere down there, and across to the foot of Lonsdale. And we'd just get on the ferry and on the Vancouver side and get off on this side and take off up to the hills.
Well, what sort of clothing would you wear as sort of young girl guides? Did you wear your uniform?
Well, first of all, we had our old uniforms we bought, and finally, because girls didn't wear breeches and things so much then as they do now. And so finally we wore the regular mountain clothes.
What would that be?
Well, a good pair of trousers and really good boots with cleats in them. I have the tricone nails now, of course. We didn't have tricone nails in those days. And then just clothe properly. Be sure you have shoes or boots big enough that you can put more than one pair of socks on. I wear 3 pairs.
Do you?
Yes.
Why would that be?
Well, it's better for your feet, and you don't blister so easily, providing that you're careful and see that your socks are not wrinkled. If you feel a wrinkle, you just stop and pull your sock up, wriggle your foot until it's quite free.
Well, what were some of the hikes when you would come over with the girl guides? Whereabouts?
Well, we used to go to, as I say, up Grouse Mountain. We used to go to Capilano. We used to go over to Lynn Valley. And we thought we had the world by the tail in those days.
What were the trails like, say, up Grouse or Seymour?
Oh, they were very, very ordinary trails, quite easy as far as I felt. Well, we all went along them quite easily. When you're young, you can do all sorts of things that you can't do.
What would you see along the way?
Well, there were all sorts of things, really. So many people, I find, they don't see anything, really, but actually you can see everything from under your feet to the sky above you. If you keep your eyes open and your ears open. It's very important to keep your ears open, too.
What could you hear?
Well, you can hear the birds, and you can hear the wind in the trees. You can hear the creeks. That is very important, too, because if it's a very noisy creek, you usually find it's a wild one to cross. Without bridges, you just have to hop rocks.
Yeah. Were there many people going hiking up the North Shore Mountains, say, in the 1920s?
No, not very many. Not nearly as many as there are now.
No. What did people think of young women scampering up the mountainside?
I don't really know, and I don't think I really cared particularly, so long as I could go. And we enjoyed our trip so much, it just became part of us.
There's a publication from Victoria called In the Western Mountains, which has an interview with you in which you describe going up one of the local mountains and changing from a skirt into breeches. And then
you were never seen on the street with breeches in those days. So we'd wear a skirt over our breeches. And then when we got to the foot of the mountain or foot of the trail, wherever you happened to be, you took your skirt off and cached it underneath a log, and there it would stay till you came down.
Yeah, sort of snuck it away there.
And they put it on again, of course, to go properly down to the old streetcar.
I see. And where would you catch the streetcar?
Up Lonsdale or Capilano or Lynn, whichever way you went, Lynn Creek, that is.
I see.
And they always went down to the ferry, and of course we just went over on the ferry then. There was no other way to get to the North Shore then.
No. Which was your favorite hike up the local North Shore Mountains?
Oh, I think the Lions, probably.
The Lions?
Yes. At least they were to me.
Yeah.
It was a good climb when once you got there.
Yes, they look, even today, they look very, very spectacular.
Yes, it's a good rock climb.
Yes.